Thank you, Dean Parker, and good morning, everyone. What a beautiful day for a celebration. It's an immense honor to be here today for this wonderful celebration of commencement, of beginnings. When Dean Parker extended the invitation to join you here today, my mind immediately traveled back. It traveled back 45 years ago to the day, I looked this up, to my own graduation that took place across the street in the P. Maravich Assembly Center. Despite the passage of those many years, I still remember that day vividly. I remember the sense of accomplishment. I remember having completed 4 demanding and very transformative for years for me personally. But I also remember something else. Sitting in that seat, in that crowd, I felt something I hadn't entirely expected: fear. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't paralyzing, but it was real. Fear of the unknown, fear of did I have what it took, fear of not knowing what the future would look like or exactly how I would fit into it. And so today, as I look out at you, the class of 2025, I can't help but wonder if you feel a bit of that too. A healthy dose of excitement, I'm sure, but maybe tucked away in the corners of your heart somewhere, there is a touch of fear. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about fear. Not as something to shrink from, but something that we can actually work with. Over the years, I've come to see fear not as a negative or as a signal to stop, but as a signpost that something meaningful is ahead. Fear, when we listen to it the right way, tells us that we're standing on the edge of growth. It means we care. It means we're stretching. I've often said, half in jest, but mostly in truth, that fear has been one of the greatest motivators in my life. It kept me up late finishing work that just had to be perfect. It pushed me to prepare more thoroughly, to think more creatively, and to show up fully, because I did not want to fall short. The trick I learned is to not let fear have the final say. When fear makes you freeze, hide, or hesitate, that's when it becomes a barrier. But when you let it wake you up, make you sharper, more alert, more prepared, that's when it becomes fuel. I once read a quote by the writer Elizabeth Gilbert who said, "Fear is always going to be along for the ride, but you don't have to let it drive." And that's it, isn't it? Let fear be in the car, just not behind the wheel. Some of the most significant moments in my life began with fear. The fear of starting a business. The fear of speaking in rooms where I didn't feel I quite belonged yet. The fear of taking on a responsibility I didn't feel quite ready for. Or the fear of delivering a commencement address at your alma mater. But I moved forward anyway. And almost every time I found out the fear was not a warning, but an invitation. An invitation to step up, to rise, and to grow. So, if you're feeling a bit of that fear today, I say good. That means you're right where you should be. That means that something important is beginning. Hold on to the fear, not as something to overcome, but as something to partner with. Let it sharpen your instincts, heighten your focus, and expand your courage. Let it remind you that you're alive and that you care, and you're about to step into something new and beautiful. So what do we do with that fear once we've chosen not to let it drive but to sharpen and motivate us. We show up. That's it. We show up. It sounds simple, maybe even obvious, but in my experience, showing up is one of the most underrated, yet most powerful choices we can make in our lives and careers. I don't just mean physically arriving, although that's certainly a part of it. I mean being present, engaged, open, willing to be seen, and willing to see others. Showing up means saying yes to the industry event after a long day, even when your instinct is to head home, order takeout, and fire up Netflix. I've done it. We've all done it. But I can't tell you how many meaningful connections, life-changing ones even, have come from not the big planned moments, but from simply being in the room. You never know when you'll meet someone who shifts your perspective, offers an opportunity, or simply reminds you that you're not alone in your path. As you launch your professional journeys, whether in studios, offices, workshops, co-working spaces, job sites, I encourage you to show up in person whenever you possibly can. Yes, technology has made it easier than ever to stay connected from afar, and that certainly has its place. But there's still something irreplaceable about face-to-face human interaction, about overhearing a conversation and learning something, about catching someone's tone, their expression, or their energy, about bumping into a colleague and solving a problem in 5 minutes versus exchanging emails over 5 days. And beyond your careers, show up for each other. Show up for your families, show up for your friends, show up for your neighbors, even strangers, especially strangers. Seek out people who see the world differently than you. There's incredible strength in that. We grow when we make rooms for perspectives that are beyond our own. And while you may not always agree with those perspectives, and you shouldn't feel compelled to, you can always engage with dignity. Lead with respect. Disagree with grace. In a world that can sometimes seem fragmented and transactional, showing up is actually a quiet and radical act. It says, I'm here, I care, I'm willing to be part of something larger than myself. And that willingness, that's the beginning of community. That's where opportunity lives. And that's where character is revealed. So when in doubt, show up. The world needs your presence far more than it needs your perfection. And while we're talking about showing up, let me offer a personal request from one art and design advocate to another. Now, I know I'm preaching to the choir in this room. You don't need a lecture on the power of art to shape culture, to shift hearts, and to challenge assumptions. You've lived it. You've created it. But I do want to offer a reminder, because the world still needs reminding that art doesn't just enrich our lives, it anchors them. And yet we live in a time where funding for the arts, public, private, educational, has been in steady decline. Recent years have only accelerated this trend. Art programs being trimmed or eliminated altogether. Just this week we learned that the MFA program at the University of New Orleans has been eliminated. In commercial contexts, we often see a quiet erosion of creative vision under the label of value engineering. I'm not here to criticize. I understand constraints. I've lived with budgets, deadlines. Clients are simply trying to make the numbers work. But I also know this: it is possible, in fact, it's essential, to defend the value of art in all of those settings, and to do so with grace, professionalism, and skill. Because make no mistake, the commercial practice of architecture, interior design, landscape architecture, graphic design, all of it is art. It is applied creativity, and you're going to be asked to justify it, to explain why it matters. So, prepare yourselves, not for battle, but for dialogue. Learn to make the case, not with defensiveness, but with clarity. Not with indignation, but with diplomacy. Your job will be, in part, to educate those who simply don't see what you see. And that has to start with understanding where they're coming from first, what they need and what they value. Only then can you connect the dots to show how design is not a luxury, but a long-term asset. How creativity isn't ornamental, but functional. How beauty isn't extra, it's essential. Well, this is no small task. It takes practice, it takes empathy, and it takes patience. It takes communication skills every bit as developed as your technical ones. I'll repeat that. It takes communication skills every bit as developed as your technical ones. But here's the beautiful part. When you advocate for the arts, you are not just defending your profession. You are shaping the world we live in. You are insisting that public spaces can inspire, that schools can spark imagination, that buildings can speak, that a well-placed graphic or a thoughtfully designed park or a carefully chosen color palette can just make someone's day a little bit better. And isn't that the point? So yes, show up for the arts, but not only in galleries and museums, but in boardrooms, classrooms, job sites, Zoom calls, city planning meetings, and in casual conversations with friends. Be an advocate, be an educator, be a builder, not just of structures, but of understanding. The world needs your voice, your talent, and your presence. As you walk out of this ceremony today with your diploma in hand, you're stepping into a world that is as complex as it is beautiful. A world that will at times challenge you, confuse you, and yes, scare you. But it will also need you, your perspective, your talent, your curiosity, and your courage. Remember, fear is not the enemy. It is simply a signal. Let it sharpen you, not stop you. Remember to show up fully with presence and purpose. Show up for your profession, show up for your community, show up for the people and places that shaped you. Above all, show up for the arts. Be bold in your creativity. Be generous in your advocacy. Be patient in your teaching. And lastly, be relentless in your belief that design, in all of its forms, has the power to shape a more thoughtful, more inclusive, and more beautiful world. Because it does, and because you do. Congratulations, class of 2025. We all can't wait to see what you create next. Thank you.